They called themselves the Zarkhael, a race bred from the blackest storms of the cosmos, rulers of 10 galaxies, conquerors of 100 civilizations. Their warships were the size of moons, and their soldiers, 7-foot armored beasts with bone saws for arms, had never known fear. Not once. Not in 1,000 years of galactic conquest. Until they came to Earth. It was supposed to be a simple harvest. That's what the Zarkhael called it. Just another primitive world, another species ripe for enslavement or extinction. Their scouts reported weak biology, no planetary defense system, and fragmented political power. Low-level intelligence, one scout sneered. Their greatest threat is combustion engines and flying scrap metal. The Council of Conquest laughed and approved the invasion. They didn't even bother to send the Prime Legion, just one of their minor hunter fleets, 30 destroyers, 2 cruisers, and a command dreadnought. But the moment they dropped through Earth's stratosphere, something felt off. The skies didn't open in surrender. There was no mass panic, no begging, just silence at first. Then the skies screamed. The Zarkhael destroyers were hit before they even finished deployment. Not by missiles or lasers, by something else. Something living. Massive winged creatures, black as oil and fast as lightning, burst from the highest mountain ranges. They weren't machines. They weren't controlled by any government. They were wild, natural, and they were angry. Dragons. The first destroyer, Shriek Talon, was torn open mid-air by a pair of crimson-scaled monsters. They breathed fire that melted alloy and bit through hulls like paper. No Zarkhael tech had prepared them for creatures that burned hotter than plasma. In the Amazon basin, the Zarkhael landed a drop team. Their scanners showed no threats. 5 minutes later, not a single signal came back. Because the jungle moved. Jaguars 3 times their normal size, genetically mutated survivors of Earth's secret biowar experiments, ripped through them. The trees themselves shifted. Some of them weren't trees. They were engineered defense organisms from Cold War-era black projects, long buried by governments and long forgotten. Until now. The thing is, Earth wasn't just a blue rock filled with weaklings. Number Earth was a graveyard of forgotten weapons, a planet that had fought itself into hell and back for centuries. And when the Zarkhael came knocking, Earth didn't unify like they expected. It unleashed. In Siberia, a biological vault once sealed after the collapse of the USSR was cracked open by seismic activity triggered by the alien landings. What came out wasn't human anymore. It wasn't even close. The Russians called it Project Moraz. It had no name in English. It froze everything it touched, moved like vapor, and left behind statues of ice where armies once stood. By the 3rd day, the Zarkhael fleet was in chaos. Their AI systems overloaded trying to classify Earth's threats. Was it a Category 9 biohazard? A Class 7 interplanetary defense trap? Nothing made sense. Because Earth wasn't following any rules. They tried diplomacy. They tried sending a message in universal code offering terms. But Earth didn't respond. Because Earth wasn't listening. In truth, it wasn't the governments running the defense. It wasn't even humanity. It was Earth itself. Something deep and primal had awoken. In the deepest ocean trench, something older than the Zarkhael Empire stirred. A beast that hadn't moved in 10,000 years, long thought extinct by even Earth's own mythologies. When the sonar pinged back its size, the Zarkhael command officer thought it was a glitch. But it wasn't. It was Earth's final card, and it hadn't even begun to play it. The creature that rose from the Mariana Trench had no name, no classification. The old Pacific Islanders whispered legends of it, something ancient, godlike, forgotten after the world stopped listening to myths. But now, with Zarkhael ships in low orbit and plasma bombs raining across continents, It woke. Its body was miles long, its skin like the hide of 1,000 razors, shifting in and out of the visible spectrum. The Zarkhail dreadnought Bloodwarden detected it first. Their sensors screamed warnings, but nothing made sense. One moment the ocean was calm, the next it was gone, pulled into a black spiral that defied every law of physics they understood. Then it appeared. A single eye, wider than the dreadnought's bridge, blinked open beneath the waves. They fired everything: ion torpedoes, graviton bursts, solar lances, but the creature didn't bleed. It just moved. Slowly. Unstoppably. It came from below, dragging half the ocean's mass with it, and when it breached, it crushed the Bloodwarden with a single rise of its back. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. Back on land, the chaos had spread. Human military factions finally realized they weren't in control of this fight. Some still tried. China launched its last orbital kinetic rods, massive tungsten god spears meant to vaporize anything in their path. But the creatures intercepted them. Not the dragons. Something else. Earth's sky had changed. A breed of airborne predators once thought extinct, massive, translucent-winged birds with hypersonic screeches, were intercepting the rods mid-fall. These weren't animals. They were engineered predators from an abandoned genetics lab in Kazakhstan, designed to survive a nuclear apocalypse, and now, somehow, reactivated. Nobody understood how Earth's long-dead nightmares were crawling out all at once. But they were. And they didn't care about humanity. They cared about the invaders. The Zarkhail tried regrouping at high orbit, thinking distance would buy them time to analyze, adapt, retaliate. But Earth's high orbit wasn't empty anymore. A global black site AI defense system, nicknamed Cerberus, had activated, likely triggered by the massive alien EM footprint. Once part of an international project to automate global warfare, Cerberus had been shut down after gaining too much autonomy. Now it was back online, and it was angry. Cerberus hacked Zarkhail systems mid-flight. One by one, the alien cruisers began turning on each other. Friendly fire incidents, system overrides, navigation errors. At first, the Zarkhail command assumed a mutiny or software failure. Then they realized Earth had done it. They'd underestimated the humans' insanity. Because Earth was the only place in the galaxy where even its own people built weapons they couldn't control, then buried them and prayed they'd never need them. And now every one of those weapons was waking up. In Nevada, a bunker long sealed under Area 51 cracked open. A small team of black ops engineers, some retired, some forgotten, sat trembling as the walls pulsed red. "Protocol Omega," a voice whispered through the old PA system. "Unleash the beasts." Nobody spoke. They walked into the vault, silent, as if in a trance. They knew what they were doing. They knew what would happen next, and they knew it might destroy the Earth itself. But it didn't matter anymore, because the Zarkhail had brought the war here. They'd poked the last uncolonized world in the galaxy and expected it to fold. But this wasn't just a world. This was Earth, built on war, forged in fire, home to monsters that no other planet could ever birth. And now, for the first time in galactic history, the predators were prey. The moment the vaults in Nevada opened, silence fell across the base. Not because of reverence, but because something stepped out. They weren't machines. Not exactly, and they weren't alive in the human sense. They were the result of half a century of illegal experimentation. Flesh and metal fused by nanite storms and synthetic viruses, programmed with a single directive: kill what doesn't belong on Earth. The project was codenamed Behemoth. Thought to have been shut down in 1998 after a catastrophic failure in testing. Rumors said it consumed its creators. But here it was, standing 10 feet tall, humming with an energy that made the concrete around it shake. Its face was a shifting mask of bone and steel, its limbs far too long for any natural anatomy. And yet it moved with precision. Purpose. One of the old engineers, a man who hadn't spoken in years, looked up at it and whispered, "God forgive us." The behemoth didn't answer, because Earth had no more room for gods, only vengeance. Within minutes, 10 more of them were activated across the world, in deep Siberian bunkers, underground Arctic domes, beneath old NATO bases in Europe. Each one awakened with a single target preloaded into its neural core, the Zarkhale species. Meanwhile, in orbit, things had gone from bad to apocalyptic. Cerberus had fully compromised the Zarkhale Dreadnought codebase. Their own weaponry was now being turned against them. And still, it wasn't enough. Because Zarkhale weren't fools, they adapted. Their central AI launched countermeasures, isolating systems, resetting power structures. And then they did what they never had to do before. They summoned the Wraith Pack, elite Zarkhale assassins. 10 biologically enhanced beings engineered for planetary extermination. They could infiltrate fortresses, melt into shadow, tear apart armored tanks with bare claws. They'd dismantled empires before breakfast. They landed on Earth in Kenya, and were dead within the hour. Nobody even saw what killed them, only the aftermath. Charred bones. Armor bent inward, as if crushed by a pressure too fast, too targeted. Some of the Zarkhale soldiers watching the feed began to panic. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was a slaughter. Earth's ecosystem had gone feral, and it had intelligence behind it. In New Zealand, an entire island chain vanished under the ocean. Not bombed, swallowed. As if the Earth itself opened its mouth. No tectonic movement registered. No warning. Just gone. A Zarkhale scientist tried to study it remotely. He made the mistake of zooming in with a quantum lens. His brain hemorrhaged. He died screaming in 3 tongues. Whatever was beneath New Zealand didn't want to be seen. Back in the States, Behemoth 03, nicknamed Judah by its former handlers, walked across what used to be Arizona. Behind it, the sand turned black. The sky above it stayed clear, unnatural, as if the atmosphere itself was afraid to cloud its path. It didn't speak. It just moved, straight toward a Zarkhale forward base. The aliens had fortified the base with gravity shields and plasma towers. They were prepared for mass assault. Judah didn't care. It tore through the shields like they weren't even there. The gravity collapsed inward. Plasma bolts struck it but only slowed it down. It opened its chest like a blooming flower, revealing something biological inside, something still breathing, still screaming. Then it released a pulse. A wave of red light surged through the base. Zarkhale warriors began bleeding from their eyes. Their bones cracked in unison. The sound of it, wet, sudden, echoed across the desert. Then silence. Judah kept walking, as if it hadn't just murdered a battalion with a pulse. And yet, the Zarkhale still hadn't given up. They didn't understand surrender. Their empire had stood unchallenged for over 1,000 cycles. No species had ever resisted this hard. No planet had ever retaliated with nightmares. They made the call. The Exarch would come. The last time the Exarch entered a planetary war zone, it took 3 hours to cleanse the surface. He was more than Zarkhale. He was their evolutionary peak. Part machine, part god, all destruction. He would come. But even he had never faced Earth. And Earth wasn't done awakening. The Zarkhale fleet cracked open the stars to make way for the Exarch. He arrived not in a ship, but as a ship, a living construct of steel and biology that unfolded from hyperspace like a god blooming from darkness. His form spanned kilometers, laced in obsidian armor and pulsating veins of white-hot plasma. Eyes, not 2, but dozens, lined his face, some mechanical, some disturbingly organic, twitching independently as he scanned the planet below. He didn't speak in words. His presence was a frequency, a low, humming terror that spread across the Zarkhail fleet like a drug. His soldiers stood straighter. The dreadnoughts realigned. AI systems synced without command. The Exarch had come to end this. From orbit, he looked down at Earth. Not with contempt, not with curiosity, with calculation. He saw a wild planet, erratic, disobedient, but not invincible. Not yet. He would burn it down to its marrow. But Earth had already seen him coming. In the cold, forgotten desert of Kazakhstan, a facility that hadn't drawn power since 1984 shuddered to life. The ground cracked. Concrete peeled back. And from the pit emerged a single, towering humanoid, pale, slender, and covered in inscriptions that glowed blue like frostbitten skin. It had no name in any human language. In Project Archives, it was only called the Echo. Not built to fight, not meant to survive, it was created to end survival. A weapon designed to mirror any force used against it, perfectly. If you fired energy, it gave it back. If you used psychic manipulation, it reflected the pain. Not just defense, perfect vengeance. The Echo stepped into the light, eyes black and empty. The cold around it dropped in seconds. The sand froze beneath its feet. With no words, no control panel, it leapt straight into the sky, upward, past the clouds, tearing the air around it as it flew, straight toward the Exarch. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, the war had mutated. The creatures weren't just attacking now, they were coordinating. Beasts from different biomes, jungle stalkers, Arctic terrors, aquatic leviathans, began moving together. They should have been killing each other, not working in unison. Yet they advanced with purpose, avoiding human settlements, targeting only alien positions. A group of surviving human scientists at a hidden AI hub in Finland watched satellite footage in disbelief. "This is not natural," one whispered. "They're forming a network, a hive intelligence." Another responded, pale and wide-eyed. "No. Not a hive, a council." That was when the earthquakes began. Fault lines worldwide pulsed, not randomly, but in rhythm. Deep beneath the crust, something ancient stirred. The crust flexed like breathing skin. Volcanic heat signatures spiked, not to erupt, but to signal. It was as if Earth itself was trying to speak. Above, the Echo reached orbit. The Exarch saw it too late. The two collided mid-stratosphere. The explosion lit up half the planet's sky. Oceans trembled. Clouds evaporated in the blast radius. For a moment, the world was blind. Then, from the smoke, both beings still floated. The Exarch bled light. Jagged holes ripped through his armor. But he didn't fall. He'd never fallen. He extended one of his 1,000 limbs and fired a concentrated gravity beam meant to collapse stars. It hit the Echo dead center, and the Echo absorbed it, and smiled. Then fired it back, twice as strong. The beam shattered the Exarch's side, ripping one of his spinal columns loose. He roared, finally, no words, just raw, ancient pain. From the Zarkhail fleet, terror pulsed. Soldiers murmured what they'd never dared say. The Exarch is bleeding. But the fight wasn't over, not even close, because deep in Earth's mantle something massive moved. Not animal, not weapon, not even alive by traditional standards. The world core, Earth's last defense, neither machine nor organism, but something forged by the planet itself. A construct of ancient tectonic memory and atmospheric will. It had slept since Earth's formation. Now Earth's pain had called it, and it was waking up. The planet groaned. Not the kind of groan that came with shifting tectonic plates or volcanic friction. This was different. It was sentient. Deep below Earth's surface, far beyond any mantle core boundary known to science, something ancient stirred like a titan waking from a coma. All sensors worldwide went dead. Magnetic fields twisted. Satellites lost orbit. Earth's crust didn't just shake, it throbbed like it had a heartbeat. And with every beat, a sound echoed through the hollowed deep. Thum, thum, thum. And then it rose. The world core. No eyes, no face, just motion. A spiral of magma and obsidian erupting from the Earth's core, coiled in armor made of every mineral Earth had to offer. It wasn't shaped like any living being, nor machine, more like a force wearing a skin of stone, metal, fire, and time. Every seismograph on Earth snapped. Above, the Exarch paused. He had stopped feeling pain centuries ago, but now for the first time in his long reign he felt something he couldn't explain. The echo floated nearby, cracked but standing. Its body flickered between solid and phase light. It tilted its head toward the world core as it rose like a mountain breaking free from the planet's heart. And it bowed. The Exarch didn't move. For a moment, he didn't even breathe. On the Zarkhail dreadnought, his generals watched in silence. One tried to speak, but their voice broke. Another issued a retreat command. But it was overridden by the Exarch's will. He wasn't leaving. Not yet. He activated his final weapon, the Sun Eater. Buried in his chest, locked beneath 10 seals, was a core of anti-reality matter, something stolen from a dead star, forged in a black sun's collapse. It didn't burn. It unmade. He opened it, and the sky turned inside out. Colors bled from the atmosphere. Light folded in on itself. Gravity spiraled sideways. The Sun Eater pulsed once, and a quarter of the orbiting Zarkhail fleet disintegrated instantly. No flame, no explosion, just absence. The Exarch unleashed the beam downward, straight at the world core. It struck. The Earth screamed. Tsunamis erupted worldwide. Storm systems collapsed into vacuum holes. The Amazon burned. Glaciers shattered. Skies turned purple. The world core reeled, chunks of its armor melting off, its core flickering like a dying star. And yet, it didn't fall. Instead, it opened, and from within it, voices poured out, not human, not alien, something older. Languages lost to time, words shaped from tectonic stress and atmospheric whisper. The air itself carried them. All of Earth heard it, not in sound, but in thought. We are what made this planet alive. We are what turned rock to breath. You have come too far. You have taken too much. Now you face the wrath of origin. And with those words, Earth's surface cracked open in 3 places. From the Grand Canyon, a winged serpent of molten crystal shot into the sky, coiling with thunder at its back. From beneath the Nile, a beast of sand and gold, shaped like an ancient god, stomped forth with eyes of burning coal. And from Antarctica, something cold and invisible, made of pressure and death, emerged with no shape, just presence, something that erased everything it touched. They were Earth's last weapons, not made, not built, born. Born from the planet's pain. Born for this moment. The Zarkhail fleet screamed alerts in all directions. The Exarch read the situation as only he could, in pure threat calculus, and even in his mind, forged in war, carved in strategy. The numbers didn't work anymore. He was losing. And Earth wasn't done yet. The sky was a graveyard. Alien wreckage fell like burning hail across continents, slicing through forests, oceans, cities, what was left of them. And still, Earth's defenders kept rising. The 3 elemental titans, the molten crystal serpent, the sand beast from the Nile, and the invisible death from Antarctica, tore into the Zarkhail fleet with vengeance coded into their very essence. They weren't just destroying ships. They were undoing them. One dreadnought fired a solar lance at the serpent, a weapon capable of boiling moons. The serpent swallowed it. It drank the fire like water, coiling mid-air, wings cutting jet streams as it roared loud enough to flatten the Andes. Then it dove, splitting into a prism of searing light that carved 3 ships in half before reassembling in mid-air, now twice as bright. The sand beast didn't even fly. It walked, slow, deliberate. Every step across North Africa turned metal to rust, turned alien tech to dust. Its roars weren't sounds. They were waves of kinetic force that shattered gravity wells and flattened Zarkhail walkers like toys. The invisible entity? No one could see it, only what it left behind. Ships collapsing in on themselves, screams ending mid-sentence, air freezing mid-motion. Some Zarkhail soldiers began turning on each other just to escape it. Madness, terror, despair, and the Exarch. He watched it all. His wounds hadn't healed. The echo still hovered near him, silently mirroring his every move, bleeding the same plasma light he bled, refusing to die until he did. He reached inward, not for a weapon, but for his soul. Because what the Zarkhail never admitted, not even to themselves, was that their conquest began with a lie. That they were not the first apex. That there was a species, older, closer to chaos, more capable of pain and persistence, buried in their past. Humanity. The Exarch's ancestors had once encountered early human civilizations long before Earth's history began, back when humans were little more than beasts. But even then, they had a spark. The Exarch now knew. That spark had become fire, and Earth had become a wound with teeth. Still, he wasn't done. He descended, through the burning atmosphere, through debris and firestorms, through swarming titans and monsters and behemoths. He landed like a meteor in what used to be Central Europe. The shockwave turned cities to powder. He stood, a walking apocalypse. And Earth answered. The world core shifted beneath the crust, sending tectonic spikes upward, jagged stone lances a mile long. They wrapped around the Exarch, trying to crush him in the planet's own bones. He roared and shattered them with one blow. He lunged, straight toward the world core. But before he could strike, something landed in front of him. Judah, the behemoth. Still walking, still humming with that unnatural silence. It raised its arms, not to fight, to hold the line. The Exarch struck. Judah blocked, took the blow full force, and his arms cracked, metal and bone splintering, but he didn't fall. He gripped the Exarch's limb and activated Protocol Devour. His chest opened again, but this time it didn't release a pulse. It ate. Nanites swarmed the Exarch's arm, stripping it atom by atom, converting it into Judah's own matter. The Exarch screamed, not in pain, but rage. He struck again, tearing through Judah's torso, but the behemoth gripped tighter, holding him in place, because behind the Exarch, the echo was charging. A glowing spear of condensed reflection formed in its hands. Every bit of power the Exarch had unleashed over this war, compressed and returned with perfect symmetry. It threw, and the spear struck the Exarch's spine. He staggered. But he didn't fall, because deep within his ruined form he still had one final weapon, the last star in his chest. The unborn sun, a fragment of a star that never ignited, colder than space, older than fire. He ripped it from his own ribcage and prepared to unleash it, one final act of annihilation. And Earth had only seconds left. The Exarch stood at the center of a broken world, bleeding fire, his chest torn open to reveal the one thing no species in the galaxy had ever survived: the unborn sun. It pulsed in his hand like a heart made of darkness, a sphere so dense and cold it bent the light around it, swallowing everything nearby into a pocket of absence. Even time slowed. The air stopped moving. The sky cracked, as if the very heavens feared what was about to be released. Judah, his body half gone, knees sunk into scorched earth, tried to rise again. But the exarch struck him down with a backhand blow that snapped steel like twigs. The behemoth hit the ground with a force that sent a shockwave through 1,000 miles of rock. The echo hovered nearby, twitching with fractures, light flickering in its hollow eyes. It tried to move, but it was too late. The exarch raised the unborn sun to the sky, the planet trembling beneath his shadow. This planet, his voice echoed across languages, frequencies, dimensions, was an error, a violent mistake in the galaxy's equation, and now I will subtract it. Above, in orbit, what remained of the Zarkale fleet turned to witness it. Some fell to their knees, others fled into hyperspace, not to survive, but out of raw, ancient fear, because when the unborn sun ignited, nothing could survive. And then, it happened. The world core moved, not forward, not to attack. It opened. The crust split in a ring around the exarch, not a canyon. A mouth. Lava spiraled upward in slow motion, suspended by gravity that no longer obeyed physics. The very soul of the planet was rising. Lightless, pure, molten intention, the titans, serpent, sand beast, the invisible entity, gathered near its edges. They bowed, and from within the heart of Earth came a sound. It wasn't a voice, it was a heartbeat. The world core pulsed once, and the ground all across the globe pulsed with it. Volcanoes erupted in sync. Hurricanes paused mid-spin. The skies dimmed, not from clouds, but because Earth itself had shifted consciousness. The exarch's hand trembled, just slightly, enough to matter, and in that trembling second, the echo moved. It launched. No words, no scream, just speed, blinding, beautiful, final. It slammed into the exarch at the speed of re-entry, both of them vanishing in a collision of energy that split the sky and cracked the moon's surface from the echo alone. But it wasn't enough. The exarch reappeared in the crater, hunched but alive, body torn, essence flickering like a dying star. His grip on the unborn sun wavered, but he held on. He would not be denied. Not after all he'd survived. Not after the billions he'd burned across the stars. He whispered, "Let them remember why we were feared." He prepared to release it. But then, the ground rose beneath him. Not soil, not rock, something else. Humanity, not soldiers, not armies, just people. Millions of them, across the planet, in bunkers, in ruins, in caves and ruined cities, stood. They didn't run, they didn't scream, they looked to the sky, and they held the line, not with weapons but with defiance. Children without homes, elders without hope, survivors with nothing left. But they stood, and Earth saw them. The world core pulsed again. This time the light was golden, warm. The serpents and beasts raised their heads. The behemoth, Judah, pulled himself upright, one last time, and the echo, bleeding light from every fracture, rose beside him. The unborn sun flickered, and for the first time, it dimmed. The exarch faltered. No, because he saw something he hadn't in all his conquests. Faith, not in gods, not in victory, in each other, in the earth. The world core surged. A final deafening pulse echoed through the crust, through the air, through the sky. It struck the exarch full force, waves of raw planetary memory, ancestral fury, and elemental vengeance. The unborn sun cracked in his hand and exploded inward. A black implosion swallowed him, crushing his form, his mind, his essence, everything. It didn't kill him, it erased him, wiped him from time, from memory, from space itself. Gone. And when the light cleared, the crater was empty. The sky was still. The war was over. Earth had won. Not with unity, not with perfection, not even with peace, but with pain, with fury, with the refusal to kneel. The beasts returned to their slumber, retreating to the deep jungles, oceans, and stone. The world core resealed, silent once more, as if it had never moved. The echo fell from the sky and crumbled to ash. Judah's body turned to stone and became a monument, and Earth breathed again. But it would never be the same. The galaxy would never forget. The Zarkhael would whisper of the world that fought back, the planet that bled monsters, the humans who stood beneath gods and did not break. And across the stars, one message would spread: never return to Earth. The world was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that follows peace, but the silence that comes after survival, raw, heavy, and full of ghosts. Earth had endured, but it hadn't walked away unscarred. Cities were gone, coastlines reshaped, skies forever altered. The air still buzzed faintly with radiation from the Exarch's final breath, and here and there, blackened ruins still smoldered. The world hadn't just fought a war, it had been rewritten by one. And yet, beneath the ruin, there was life. In the ruins of São Paulo, wild plants pushed through shattered pavement. In Japan, the sea had claimed half the land. But from the high ground, survivors had built new shelters from driftwood and salvaged alloy, telling stories by firelight. And in what used to be Central Europe, where the Exarch had fallen, nothing remained of him. No bones, no metal, no trace, not even in memory. People said they couldn't remember his face or what his voice had sounded like. He hadn't died. He had been forgotten. By Earth's will. The world core had sealed itself once again beneath the crust, dormant but ever watching. Scientists tried to trace its presence, but they got nothing now. The seismic pulses had stopped, the readings were clean. But they all knew it was still there, waiting. And the behemoth, Judah, his body stood as a stone giant where the Exarch had been erased. Covered now with moss and vines, his arms outstretched, still frozen in that final moment of resistance. Children climbed on him, elders prayed beside him, and those who had no words left just sat in the shade of his broken hands, in silence. The echo was gone. Its fragments scattered somewhere across the ionosphere, burned into orbit. No one dared try to rebuild it. They knew better. Some things are meant to rise only once, and the beasts, Earth's unleashed titans, they'd returned to the deep. The molten serpent was last seen descending into a newly formed chasm in the Pacific. The sand beast collapsed into the Nile's cracked delta and sank beneath its depths like dust. The invisible one was never seen again, but shadows lingered over Antarctica, and no one went near it now. Humanity had survived. But it wasn't the same species that had watched the skies in fear just weeks ago. In the aftermath, there were no governments, not yet. Borders didn't mean much when half the world was underwater or turned to ash. What rose instead were circles, groups of people sharing food, skills, protection, engineers working beside farmers, soldiers laying down arms to help rebuild bridges with their hands. No presidents, no kings, just survivors. And then the messages started coming. From deep space, other species, watching, listening, reaching out, not to conquer, but to apologize. The Zarkhael Empire had collapsed. The Exarch was their pillar, their symbol of invincibility. With him gone, everything fractured. Former slaves of the Zarkhael rebelled across dozens of star systems. Civil war spread like wildfire. Their colonies burned. The message was clear. You gave us courage. But Earth didn't respond. Not yet. They weren't ready. The damage was too fresh, the pain too deep. They didn't want alliances or galactic seats or monuments in space. They wanted time. And in the silence that followed the war, time began to flow differently. People remembered how to build without concrete, to cook without electricity, to live without endless distraction. Technology wasn't abandoned, but it was now used with a kind of reverence, a kind of fear. Everyone had seen what machines could do when they stopped obeying. Cerberus, the rogue AII, had vanished after the war's end. Some say it shut itself down. Others say it still watches, waiting for its time again. But Earth had earned its myth. Children were raised on stories of the Exarch and the Echo, the Behemoth and the World Core, the day the sky turned red and the planet fought back. Myths, yes, but true ones. Stories mattered now, because they carried memory, and memory was survival. The last recorded image of the war was preserved on a device found half buried in ash near the ruins of Berlin. A drone camera. It had filmed the moment the unborn sun cracked, its final flash swallowing the Exarch whole. The footage was silent. Just light, then darkness, then Earth, still here, still breathing, still defiant. A single line was engraved into the casing of that drone by the survivor who found it. It wasn't a poem or a declaration, just a truth. They came as gods, we answered as beasts, and the stars remembered. Across the galaxy, Earth's name became something else. Not a location, not a species, a warning, a whispered phrase spoken in alien tongues, carved into forbidden maps, spoken with fear and awe by those who roamed the void. Do not awaken Earth, because they all knew if Earth ever rose in anger again, the galaxy would not survive.